What's going on, creators? Yeah, I just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, today I'd like to talk a little bit about purity spiraling and how you can avoid that pitfall if you've drifted into it. It's really easy to drift into it because it's so common in the world, in culture at the moment, especially if you're involved in like the political culture of like the left and the right, the woke versus the base, all this kind of shit. They're all doing the same thing, purity spiraling. And what that looks like is, oh, I am the good guy, so therefore you're the bad man. And then you get these two people competing on who's not the bad man by trying to flex on moral behavior or moral ideology. And whenever that starts to become more and more obvious, it's the same trend with like COVID, where it's just like you see the absurdity, and then instead of like course correcting, it's like, no, we're gonna double down. I'm the good guy, you're the bad guy. I'm the good boy, you're the bad boy. This is why I'm purity spiraling, because I'm so morally pure, and then therefore you are the out group. Well, that kind of binary thinking is very normal, with the old state of mind that views everything as separate and making an identity. If you're like maybe, I'm a political voice or whatever, then that becomes part of an identity. And then anything I say, I experience that too, just in doing these, just on some level, it's like I'm trying to be real and not be a persona, which is very easy to start to drift into, like creating like a character, and then you are expected to fulfill that role of this character, which I was listening to a really it was a I found it entertaining. It's this stream. I've seen a couple of his streams before. I'll just do a quick shout out. Definitely like to give people positive mental diet activities, especially when you realize how important what you're impressing the subconscious mind is. But it's the Chris Williamson channel, and this just came out. Let me pull it up. I actually gonna listen. It came out yesterday, and it has a guest on there, and they're just having a pretty in-depth conversation about some of these topical things. Kind of inspired me to kind of go in that direction for a little bit, mainly because I get on social media and then you see people spiraling. Oh, do you see what And I live in a like a conservative area, so the chatter around my area is like, when it comes to like liberals, is like, oh, the democrats and like the libtards, and all these like kind of things, just looking at like that ideology as just being borderline evil, satanic. These are the bad man, these are the bad people, and then you see this purity spiral, and then I think something maybe haven't happened in culture that's now triggered a lot of people, but that's typical for most people that are just being programmed by the television, myself included, because now I'm kind of like tainted by this thing. But with it, I think it's important to not like shy away from things that are unfolding in your present moment, but to bring them to awareness, to like look at it, be like, am I guilty of like purity spiraling? A lot of religious people get into that trap big time, and I think that's part of the reason I get like with all religious programming and traumas that come with that line of thinking. Oh, it's always like, look at the sinners over there. Look at those unrighteous people over there. They're the bad people. I'm the special one or whatever. But when you look at like maybe the teachings of Jesus, for example, you see how that purity spiraling starts to get thrown out the window. Jesus said himself, it's like, why do you even call me good? There's only one that's good, and that's the creator. It's not putting yourself on this pedestal. And I really hope I am not putting myself on this pedestal, like, oh, look at me, I'm the perfect person or whatever. Because I got a lot of shit going on that it is not ideal. But the measuring stick I use is like, where was I at 5 years ago? Where was I at last week? Am I growing in my ability to like be present, be calm, express more joy, gratitude, or am I spiraling in a different way instead of like a purity spiral, but like it being like a fear spiral or a jealousy spiral or an envious spiral? All of those really come to a head in like the old mindset that's everything's separate, everything's little camps. There's the good boys, there's the bad boys, there's the good girls, there's the bad girls, and and everything else in between. And once you realize how pointless that actually is and how much that's creating a division in your own consciousness, because we are all connected. So it's like what you're pointing out in the others, that's like the negative or like the sinful behavior or whatever. You only recognize that because it exists in yourself. And so part of like doing these is like whenever something is being obvious, like in the unfolding present moment of like, man, this is not harmonious. This is not at rest. This is not ease. This is not joy. And it's like an obvious, like a discernible thing where it's like, no, this is a shit show. Let's look at that, because as you look at it, you realize all these things have their roots in consciousness. And so as you unpack your own programming, the whatever other moral behavior that other people are doing, it's one thing if they're bringing it to you and like maybe like attacking you or physically assaulting you or whatever, just doing, stealing from you or whatever. That's one thing. It's another when you're looking at culture and you're connecting these dots. Oh, there was a shooting over here, therefore we need to ban the guns. And oh no, it was not the guns. It's the insanity of the left that's brainwashing these people into violence and chaos and this back and forth, no, I'm the good guy, you're the bad guy, and then instead of like actually fixing anything, actually evolving consciousness, it's a downward bottomless pit of more drama, more chaos. And then with that, is the unconscious programming of the subconscious mind for people that are into those kinds of spirals, not meaning to be, but when you divide consciousness and divide people, you're dividing part of your own self. And in that, you're starting to then experience more suffering because now you're attacking. And as you attack another, what you give to another, that comes back on you. And so whenever you're doing that, whenever you're pointing your finger at the bad man and attacking, condemning especially, you're condemning part of yourself. And therefore your vibe starts to get lowered. You start to then spiral in your own consciousness, and then you start thinking in terms of fear, separation, us versus them, scarcity, and in some ways, oh, there's not enough good people. There's just a bunch of these heathens just running around. It's like, burn the witches. Fuck these people. God told me to kill them. But like when it comes to the purity spiraling, it can be especially dangerous if you allow that unconscious pattern to continue for many reasons, especially once it's hit culture. By the time it's hit culture, you can track it back to your own house. Is your marriage, are you doing it in your marriage? Are you purity spiraling with your wife? Oh, she's the bad one, you're the good one. She was raised in a fucked up way, you were raised the correct, and all of these are reflective of what's going on within. And the broader culture is just a reflection of the smaller individualized culture into even smaller, these interpersonal dynamics, these relationships. All of it are able to be used in a way where you can start to evolve your consciousness to get out of a lot of these kinds of spiraling behaviors. Not looking at the world in terms of like, oh, you're the bad man, I'm the good man, but looking at everything as being connected as part of like a divine creation that serves a function. And the more that you realize how powerful your own consciousness is, and the what you impress on the subconscious mind has a direct influence then on your perception of reality, well, then it becomes even more important not to be spending a lot of your attention on the undesirable, on the bad. Oh, look at the heathens over here. The more you focus on the undesirable, the more you grow it unconsciously. And that's why, you see a lot of like, can you believe there's this many mass shootings? It's like, yeah, that's what happens when people put their attention on the undesirable. They manifest what they don't want. And, until culture, starts to take more ownership of their mind and their creative abilities, and how they're projecting onto other people, realizing that we're all connected. Once you realize it's all connected, then it's like hurting another person is retarded because it just hurts you. It's the same, it's not random chaos. But the problem is when you start spiraling or drifting into unconscious states, which then create suffering, one of which is in purity spiraling. It's this idea that that you can please God through your own work, which, if you read the Bible at all, it's very clear that our works of righteousness are like dirty rags, meaning dirty tampons, if you really want some clarity on that. So it's like, that's how God looks at your works of righteousness, these purity spirals of, oh, you're the good person because you demonstrate externally, maybe one thing, but God looks at the heart, and if you're in your mind judging and condemning other people, criticizing, complaining, bitching, moaning, all these kinds of things, and not doing anything to solve it in your own consciousness, you're called to love, and when you're judging and condemning, you're not loving. And so you're just as guilty as the people you're pointing your finger at as like the bad person. It's like you, in doing that behavior in your own consciousness, is creating a lot of those situations and doubling down on more and more separation. You believe this team versus that team, which that spiral only leads into death, war, fucking drama and chaos, violence, because you start to dehumanize and separate them from you. Well, then it's easy then to blame them for every single problem, this victim mentality. It's all connected to this this mass formation, this group think, this unconsciousness, egoic, whatever you want to, the mind virus, whatever you want to label it as. It's a big glaring symptom of that when people are purity spiraling and thinking that, oh, through my own moral work, I'm pleasing God on some level, or what am I trying to say, or demonstrating virtue for the praise of other people, because you, again, not having that internal connection, realizing that what you impress on the subconscious mind externalizes on the screen of space in the form of your relationships. Everything in your life is a big externalization of consciousness, and more importantly, your relationship to God in relationship to everything going on. Because there's really only one thing going on, and that is your consciousness being externalized through all of these different experiences. But in doing so, by letting go of a lot of like the limiting beliefs, the limiting assumptions, the identity itself of you're separate from God, which you're not separate from God. So anytime that you're connecting with that energy of like praying to God out in space, you're not realizing the kingdom of God within you. And so focusing your attention on the kingdom of God, it's like, okay, if I'm to live in the end, if I'm already blessed according to the Bible, that everything is a gift, all I have to do is receive it, ask, believe, and receive. Part of my believe is in the present moment. In the present moment, what am I doing? Am I attacking another person? Am I purity spiraling? Am I, I'll get like that with like religious people. It's like, oh, to me, you're coming off as like being maybe a hypocrite, or I don't think you're that fucking great, or whatever it happens to be. I can be really hard on like super religious people, mainly because of my own dramas and everything else. I'm actually working on that. I've been actively going to a church and playing guitar. I don't know if it's like been a year or two. I only stay present. So like my concepts of time is starting to really get fuzzy, but like and there's a lot of that kind of unconscious programming within my own consciousness, just from my experience in like teenage years. I used to have like, I used to skateboard, and I used to be into like punk music scene and all that, and so like my appearance and everything kind of reflected that culture, which did not resonate with like the conservative culture of where I lived. It's like there's like a time I was like really bright, like probably like this microphone, like that color red. I had my hair that color at one point, and I'd like be walking around town, and be like religious people would like stop and like tell me I was going to hell, and just really just being fucking pricks. And like and in the meantime, it's like, who the fuck are you? It's like, you ain't loving, you ain't doing shit that's positive. And a lot of that stuff is carried on into the present moment, which I'm letting go of. And that's what I see a lot of, like the purity spiraling kind of triggers me, where it's just like, why do you think that you're so good? Why do you think that you're the good one? And really, even in the truth community, it's something you can like fall into those purity spirals unconsciously, not meaning to, by going, well, look at the New World Order, look what the Illuminati's doing, look what these satanic people are doing, look what these depopulation people are into, look at this, look at that, they're the bad guys, I'm the good guy. Again, it's that paradigm of like purity spiraling, where then, if you have a conversation with somebody that is in that camp, then it's like, I'm not even trying to be loving or helpful or whatever. I'm just trying to either point out where you're wrong and try to what am I trying to say? It's like, it's either I'm going to try to criticize you, and that's what I'm listening for. I'm listening for a reason to criticize you and be better than you and to one up you and all this kinds of stuff. Instead of, I'm listening to you to try to understand your point of view and evolve and grow and like let go of some of this trauma. You see the difference? Like the difference between like a lot of like the world, especially on social media and the internet, where it's like this veil of anonymity. That's not right. Anonymity, whatever, where you can be anonymous, where it's just like, oh, I'm trying to get clout, or I'm trying to get clicks, I'm trying to get a dopamine rush with, some like little bell and whistle, like a Pavlov dog, where, where other people will, share, try to build me up and like, oh yeah, he's valuable, all that kind of shit. It's just, once you stop needing the outside to create an internal state, but when you can really let go of that and be able to change your internal state by being whole and complete now in consciousness, in your own consciousness, it's like, I don't really need your praise. I don't need this. I don't need to create a character for you to, applaud or whatever. It's like, I don't even, I've gotten to a point, it's like, I don't even care to be the good one. It's like, the only thing that matters to me is like the relationship with God. And if like man says, oh, you're the bad boy, it's like, okay, boo, it's scary, it's like, I don't like see a benefit in like the purity spiraling. And, when it comes to, what is obvious to me, it looks like it's a detriment, and it looks like it's not helpful. It's not evolving and becoming more in harmony. It's creating more disorder, and anything in my own experience of life that's causing a lot of disorder, dysfunction, chaos, drama needs to be let go of. And in doing so, you give up nothing besides suffering, and you gain you gain way more than you lose. It's obvious, but that's part of the conundrum, because it's like, doing what you need to be doing versus actually doing it is somewhat difficult, and it's only through discipline where you can force yourself into taking the action of like, okay, well, this person is never going to stop. They're going to spiral down, because that's the nature of the unconscious state. It wants to be punished. It wants the drama. It wants the conflict. It wants that. And so feeding it what it wants is only going to lower your vibe. It ain't going to fix the other person through the physical. You can fix it through the spiritual, because everything is a reflection of the spiritual. Understanding that, it's easier to become unattached to the conflict of like, oh, bad, oh, you believe in this value, then you're the bad man. You're not moral. You're immoral. You're the bad man. And it's like, okay, what does that mean? Well, that means God hates you. It's like, is that what the thought is, or you hate me? Are they want to? What are you trying to say? And so really get to the bottom of it. Not allow yourself to be triggered by the spiraling of other people, realize that there's also some of that within you, or else it wouldn't even be brought to you metaphysically. And it's like, okay, well, I can't do anything in the unfolding present moment without this being attached to my attention. So it needs to be, let's bring it to awareness, let's ask God what to do, and then apply whatever comes in the form of intuition as far as like an action to take, then execute the action. It's very simple, how to start to be at rest and at peace, but there's a satisfaction in attack. There's a pleasure in it, that like a lot of, like I get to, like that, it's like, oh, I'm attacking that person and I feel superior because of the attack, or like, oh, it's like, oh, I got the moral high ground or whatever. And there's like this kind of egoic satisfaction in that. But once you let go of that, of conflict, needing to be right 24/7, needing to be the intellectual, needing to be the philosophical high ground, the moral high ground, the spiritual high ground even, it's like, it's all one thing. It's all the same shit manifesting in different forms. Those spirals are only causing yourself to suffer as you engage in that trick. It's like, it's a trick ultimately, that the spiral, because if you're attacking in a purity spiral, you're not pure. You're falling for the same trick, and the other person may not even care to go up the vertical dimension of reality, and they like suffering. They enjoy the conflict and the drama. Some people do. That's not for you to judge, but like what you can do is not fall into the pit with them by engaging in that kind of us versus them paradigm, becoming still, become conscious, become present, check your own mindset in regards to that other person. When you're sitting there judging, hey, I really feel like this person's spiraling, purity spiraling, like, oh, can you believe these trans people are so fucking insane that they're doing this, and how dare they, and not to say that psyop is anything other than something to break people's mind. But, some people, there's outliers in everything. It's not to even judge people that are dealing with that kind of drama, because we aren't these bodies ultimately. Our body is a reflection of mind, of the subconscious, and, we are all connected, so not to sit there in judgment of that, of people that are dealing with that, gay people, bi people, I've never cared anything about that kind of shit. I've always, focused on my own shit when it comes to that. It's like, I like women, I'm married, I have sex with women, my wife, never really been, so that's why I don't talk about it, because it's not something I really think in terms of, like, that's not something that's a struggle for me in that way. But, as somebody who is just getting bombarded with a lot of this stuff, it's like, okay, the logic behind it is what bothers me, because then it's like, okay, if you need me to validate you, for one, you're not feeling whole and complete within yourself, so that's a problem. For two, you're really going against, you're causing a lot of resistance in me, because my belief system, where I may not be like judging what you're doing, like I want you to die and go to hell. It's like, no, that's not what I want, but I also don't want you suffering either, or, bringing more suffering for other people, and when it comes to like psychological warfare operations or whatever, it's just obvious to me, once you realize that there's a concerted effort to depopulate people, and it's a form of control. If you're thinking more in terms of like farming and how you can control groups of people and prevent breeding getting out of control, that to me, that's what it is. So it's like, when this trans shit and all the fucking whatever, that's how I look at it. Not to diminish people's suffering or their traumas, or why they're attracted to a lifestyle. That's not what I'm talking. To me, it's more of like the psychological. I'm trying to keep this people from breeding. What's the easiest way to do that? Well, it's a lot easier to convince you not to have kids than it is to put a bullet in your fucking head without other people being upset by it. And especially when you bring in a lot of the some of the other propaganda techniques that's obvious, but it's obvious to me. Maybe it's not obvious to others, but and hopefully that wasn't just like a purity spiral either. Oh, how dare you, Mike? And it's like, okay, well, that's where I'm coming from with it. Take it or leave it. And then the other part of it is like, okay, well, then you need me to validate you because you're not feeling whole and complete. And then on top of it, you need me to violate what I understand on top of it. It would be no different than if I came to you and said, okay, well, I was born in the wrong body. I'm a panda bear, and I need you to give me some bamboo and let me rest for 18 hours and not bother me with your human problems. You see how it starts to spiral when you start to bring it out even further. It's like, yeah, here, and it's like the slippery slope. But it's like, okay, we're here. If I keep going down that line of thinking, at what point does it become like absurd? Panda bear, I mean, that's absurd. So it's like, okay, if a baby, what if I say I think I'm a baby? Is that absurd? What if I think what if I think I'm a, and you keep dialing it back, and it's like, okay, well, there's a point where there's suffering and there's mental illness going on. That's what I'm talking about, and so not to like purity spiral in the sense that, oh, I'm the good one and you're not. That's not what I'm saying, but some people will take that as what I'm saying, but ultimately I just look at all of that kind of stuff as just being a psyop. And I have like lots of evidence I could really like put out there to back that up, but I don't feel like arguing or debating it. It's like, because I ultimately don't even really care. It's just like, I don't care what you're doing. That's the problem. Is like, I don't need you to be whole and complete and validate what I'm saying or what I'm believing or what I'm being. But then there's a group of people that does need that, and then there's conflict, and there's drama, and everything else. And it's just like, okay, well, instead of me listening to you to try to why can't I talk today? Critique you. I want to just listen to what you're saying to one up you, to be the right one, to be the pure one, to be the most ideologically perfect, to be the most quote unquote loving, even, and you'll see people saying the most unloving things because they're purity spiraling, and like, well, let me put on the authority of the voice of God, in the situation because I'm so pure and righteous and you're not, and it's like, that whole thing is not helpful. That's not a helpful way to that, what are you impressing your subconscious mind with that God creates all these like imperfect things? Like that's a limiting belief. Everything God said that you're a masterpiece, and everybody around you, God thinks that about. So it's like, if you aren't seeing people as a masterpiece or that God loves them, well, that's a big glaring thing in your own consciousness. That's again, look at whatever's manifested in your present moment. Yeah, there's going to be things that are really going in harmony and functioning awesomely, especially if you've went ahead and like had like a transformative experience, and you can start seeing the progress, and it's like, you get a lot of positive momentum and whatnot. Well, I just got this phone call. I'm gonna have to actually probably answer that, so I'm gonna have to bounce. So appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing. Hopefully this was helpful on some level, and hopefully it wasn't too triggering. Yeah, but I gotta bounce. So, I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing, all the social networking things. I appreciate your spiritual support and your physical support. Donation link in the description. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I appreciate the kind messages that you send with those donations and everything. Oh, Mike, you're begging for money again. It's like, it's like, I understand some people like to flex their abundance. I appreciate you for doing that. If you can't flex your abundance because you're still growing into it, don't fucking sweat it. It's like, it's fine. Everybody's at different levels of consciousness. Not to say that makes people better or worse. Oh, he's way up here, so let's spiral. It's like, we're all on this thing together, and we're all connected. So it's like, the more that kind of address whatever's happening in the present moment that's causing disharmony, that's an obvious weed in your garden, that's the shit you need to start to either, why do I think this? Why am I so triggered by this? Why Yeah, and ask God those kinds of questions, and then don't be surprised when you start to get thoughts associated with what's going on. That's the programming within your own consciousness, which is a direct result of what's going on in your bubble of reality, in your perception. These things are drawn to you like a magnet for you to level up your consciousness, and the more that you're able to do that and level up, the less that you even desire to spiral, because it just causes all those spirals just cause more unconsciousness, which causes more suffering. A lot of it is fear related, and a lot of it's just trying to be morally superior. But in that being superior, you're just flexing your ego and creating suffering not only for yourself but a lot of people around you. And so if you notice that you're starting to drift into like maybe attack, hatred, us versus them, putting yourself on a pedestal, putting other people down, any of that type of shit, well, that's when you put the brakes on, take a conscious breath, and ask God. Is like, do I want to spend the present moment attacking this person, planting those seeds in my subconscious, which as I'm imagining, as I'm attacking, what you give to another will come back to you, and in the form of more attack and shit towards you, because we're all one, we're all connected. And so hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully that is enlightening on some level. Hopefully that gives you something to practice if you're experiencing a lot of these purity spirals, like, oh, I'm the righteous good person. It's like I've heard from so many people, it's like at a restaurant or whatever on this Sunday afternoon crowd, and they come out of church and you just they're filled with all these pricks. And it's like, yeah, we're all got issues, but the problem with like the purity especially is like it's so obvious that it's like you're a hypocrite, and we're all kind of hypocrites on some level. I mean, none of us is perfect. None of us is really that pure, as far as I'm concerned. I think we're all shit shows on some level. But what do you expect? What do you expect from people that have just dealt with nothing but trauma and horse shit and bullshit for years and decades? You deal with fucked up people. And everybody's kind of fucked up. That's like one of the grand illusions is like there's nobody that is that good. Everybody's kind of fucked up on some level, and not owning it. Whatever. It is what it is. So I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing, all that. And until the next now, God bless.